BrainCore, The Future of Alzheimer's Testing by Group 13. Alzheimer's disease is a neurological disorder in which the death of brain cells causes memory loss and cognitive decline. It also causes a decline in thinking and the ability to perform daily tasks. It affects more than 5 million Americans. The possibility of developing Alzheimer's disease increases with age, and with the average age of the world going up, the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's is increasing as well. Some of the symptoms include a gradual loss of memory, judgment, and the ability to function. The loss of memory worsens over time until it interferes with most aspects of daily living. Even in familiar settings, a person with Alzheimer's disease may get lost or become confused. Over time, people can experience personality and behavior changes and have trouble interacting socially. Although this disease is not curable, there are treatments that can help manage the symptoms and slow the progression of the disease. Taking omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, eating a low-fat diet, increase of physical activity, drinking a lot of water, daycare programs, do regular physical exercise, support groups and services, engaging in social activities, drug treatments, and also things like puzzles and brain games can help as well. This disease is a result of variants in the APP, PSIN1, PSIN2 genes, which cause large amounts of toxic protein fragments called amyloid beta peptides to be produced in the brain. PSIN2 gives out instructions for making the protein presenilin to guide the production of a protein that carries chemical signals from the cell membrane to the nucleus. In the nucleus, these signals activate genes that are essential for cell growth and maturity. They are found in brain and other tissues. Environmental causes include lifestyle choices, head injuries, high blood pressure, diabetes, and even social stress. With age being the strongest risk factor overall, essentially, no single factor is solely responsible for developing Alzheimer's disease.
23andMe is a genetic test that can detect variations that are linked to Alzheimer's disease. The genetic variation that 23andMe tests for is the E4 variant on the APOE gene, which contributes to an increased risk of an individual developing late-onset Alzheimer's. This test, however, does not identify or report on the E2 and E3 variants of the APOE gene because these variants are not associated with an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. A limitation for this specific test is that it tests for genes that affect Alzheimer's disease risk instead of testing for the genes that actually cause Alzheimer's disease. It is possible to have the E4 variant and not have Alzheimer's. If someone has one copy of the variation, their risk of developing Alzheimer's increases threefold. However, if someone has two copies of the variation, their likelihood of developing Alzheimer's increases to 9 to 12-fold. The APOE gene contains instructions for making a protein called apolipoprotein E. This protein helps control the levels of cholesterol and fats in the blood. This variation does not impact the structure of the protein. The variations in apolipoprotein E cause problems in the processes that help to carry cholesterol and other types of fats in the bloodstream. This protein is usually expressed in the cells of the liver and the central nervous system.
There are around 64 SNPs that can be associated with Alzheimer's disease. Since we know this, our company BrainCore has made a SNP chip test that tests for all of those 64 SNPs. Our competitor 23andMe only looks at the APOE gene and the E4 variant. However, there are many more genes that have the ability to make a person develop Alzheimer's, such as APP, PSEN1, PSEN2, and the APOJ gene. The RS1113600 SNP affects the APOJ gene. This SNP is associated with either a decrease in Alzheimer's if the person has a CT or TT genotype. However, it could also show an increased risk for developing Alzheimer's later in life if the person has a CC genotype. This occurs because the CC genotype is linked to a weakness of the protein myelin. This protein makes up the protective layer surrounding the neurons that are in the brain tissue. If the brain tissue does not have this protective layer, then it is susceptible to developing the symptoms of the disease. It has shown that there is a 0.84 times decrease with the genotype CT and TT, while there is a slight increased risk of 1.16 times greater odds developing the disease later in life with a CC genotype. This increase is something that our test can detect for and help the patient know what their next step needs to be.
There is a risk associated with this test. A genetic test cannot entirely confirm or eliminate the possibility of developing a trait, since known alleles only cause a small increase in risk. Not all alleles that can lead to the development of Alzheimer's are known, so there is a chance that you may test negative for all known alleles, but still have an allele that increases your risk of developing Alzheimer's. Adults over 65 have a 10% chance of developing Alzheimer's, and this risk increases to 11.6% with the discovery of genetic variations. A positive test for increased risk of Alzheimer's may cause undue stress and worry if a patient does not actually end up developing Alzheimer's. However, a positive diagnosis may also give patients time to prepare emotionally and save money for long-term care they may need in the future. There is a cost associated with this test. A SNP chip costs $200 to $300. Spending this amount of money on a single test may be worth it for the knowledge and peace of mind that a negative result could provide, but paying for a family to take the test may prove unaffordable. Since the test is not entirely accurate, it is important to make lifestyle changes to reduce your risk of developing Alzheimer's, regardless of the results. Speaking to a healthcare provider can give you more insight on if you have risk factors that warrant this test, as well as help you weigh the pros and cons of testing for your unique health situation.